Hi everyone, this is Ravi. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Postman beginners tutorial and this is our lesson 1 where I'm going to introduce you to the latest version of the Postman tool, and also I'm going to teach you how can we download and install the latest version of the Postman from the official website of Postman. Please do subscribe to the channel, click on bell icon. You'll receive notifications whenever I publish more videos. Thank you. So, what is Postman? So, it is an API client which will be used to send API requests from the Postman tool, and you can perform, basically you can develop the APIs by using Postman, and also you can perform testing manually or by automating the test cases by using Postman tool. And also you can share the projects that you developed in Postman, and also you can document the APIs that you developed. It supports both REST as well as SOAP requests. And I'm going to teach you how can we download and install Postman desktop application from the official website. And as I told you, Postman is an API client. If you see in the diagram, this is your client and you are sending requests through network to one of the server. That means from client, the Postman sends the API requests. Either it might be REST services request or SOAP request through network to server. So that's why we call it as Postman. So now let's jump onto the system and let me teach you all these concepts by using Postman. This is my Chrome browser. So let me teach you how can we download latest version of the Postman tool first. Okay. So you just need to type Postman download and then search. So as soon as you search, you can find first search result, which is postman.com/downloads. You just need to click on that link, and then here on the top you have sign up for free button. You need to click on sign up for free button and then provide your email address and what is the username that you want to provide, and then what is the password, and then click on create free account. As soon as you click on free account, you're going to receive an email. So let me show you what kind of email you are going to receive. So this is the email that you are going to receive with a welcome note to confirm your email. So as soon as you click on confirm my email, your email will be confirmed. Okay. And then once that is done, let's go back to your Chrome browser. Okay, you need to go back to your Chrome browser and then click on sign in, and then here you need to provide your username and provide your password and click on sign in. So once you click on sign in, where you can find a download option. If you see at the bottom here, at the bottom left corner, there is an option for downloading the desktop application, Postman desktop application. Click on this, and now if you see, because my machine is Windows machine, it's recognizing me as a Windows machine, and then it is showing me a button to download my Windows application. You just click on that button. As soon as you click on button, your postman.exe file will be downloaded. So I already downloaded my postman.exe file. So let's go to my downloads option, and you need to run this setup file. It's a straightforward. You just double click and then follow the instructions provided by the Postman UI. Simple. Just click on next. So once that is done, you can see a icon, Postman icon on your desktop. You need to click on that icon. As soon as you click on that icon, your Postman application, desktop application will be opening. So once you open the desktop application, you need to click on sign in button to sign in. Okay, this is my Postman where I have empty collections, APIs, environments. I'm going to explain all these concepts, how to create workspaces, how can you create your collections, how can you create API request SOAP and REST services, and then how can you test your APIs, right? All these things. How can you create environments, environment variables, all these things I'm going to explain you in the next upcoming sessions. Okay. For now, let's just sign in. Click on top right corner, click on sign in and provide your username and password. So before that, it's gonna, when I click on sign in, it's gonna open your browser to sign in. You need to provide your username and then password and click on sign in. As soon as you click on sign in, it's going to ask you to open your application. Okay, so here if you see here, you're gonna, your application, Postman application, by default is gonna sign in because it's a single sign on. As soon as you sign in to your browser, your application also gets sign in. Okay, desktop application. So if you see, this is my nice dashboard of my desktop application. This is desktop application, it's not web browser. I have all the workspaces that I already created. Okay, because you see, for the first time when you sign in, you won't see any workspaces. Okay, so as I told you, I'm going to cover all the concepts, very important concepts of Postman tool. How can you use the Postman tool to test SOAP services, REST services, and then how can you automate your SOAP and REST services, automation concepts. Okay, how can you create environment variables, global variables. I'm going to teach you all the concepts in the upcoming sessions. Please do subscribe to the channel, click on bell icon. You'll receive notifications whenever I publish more videos. Thank you. To all viewers, a big thank you whoever watching my YouTube videos. So what I can observe, around 86.8% of the viewers are watching my videos, but they have not subscribed to my channel. I would recommend and I would request everyone, please do subscribe to the channel and encourage me in posting more and more videos which are helpful for you guys. Thank you. Hi everyone, this is Ravi. Welcome back to Postman Beginners Tutorial. This is our lesson 2 on Postman tool concepts. So in this lesson, I'm going to teach you how can we create a first API request by using REST service, and then how can we run the created API request, and how can we analyze the response and the results by using Postman. Please do subscribe to the channel, click on bell icon. You'll receive notifications whenever I publish more videos on these concepts. Thank you. Okay, so in this lesson, I'm going to teach you how to create a new workspace in Postman, and then how can you create a new REST API request within the workspace, and what is the meaning of workspace, and how to run REST request message by using Postman, and also how to analyze the response and the results of your API request message. So now let's jump onto the system and see how can we perform all these activities. So this is my Postman tool. Okay. I have already explained you how can you download and install Postman tool in my previous lesson. I would suggest you guys to visit my previous lesson. Okay. So first, let me create a new workspace. So what do you mean by workspace? Workspace is where all the project related files, whatever you create by using Postman, will be stored in a particular workspace of your system. Okay, so let's create one workspace. Name this as YouTube project. Okay, and you can provide your summary here. It's an optional. And what is the visibility of this workspace? Do you want to make this workspace to visible only particular person, or do you want to make it as a private, or do you want to make this as visible to your entire team, or do you want to make it as public? So instead public, I want to select team so that my team can view this workspace. Okay, click on create workspace. So as soon as you click on create workspace, it redirects you to the YouTube project workspace. This is my YouTube project workspace home page, overview page. And if you see the left side, I can see collections, APIs, environments, mock servers, monitors, flows, and history. I'm going to explain all these options in the further videos whenever we get into the relative topic. Okay. So now let's create an API. So there are three methods how to create a very simple API. Either you can click on create an API, or you can click on new from the file option. From file, click on new. As soon as you click on new, it's going to ask you what new element do you want to create. Do you want to create HTTP request, or do you want to create collections, or do you want to create workspace, or environment, or API, right? So we already created workspace. Now I want to create API. So this is one method of creating a new API. Or another one is exact besides your workspace, you have a new button. Click on this button, it's going to open the same window. You can create your API from here as well. Or you can use import button so that you can import your schema. If you have schema with you, you can import your schema so that you can use an existing APIs to execute. Okay, so for today's session, I'm going to create a new API request. Click on new, and now I don't want to create a new API entire development process. I want to just take a basic get HTTP request. Okay, just select this get HTTP request. As soon as you select get HTTP request, now what is the REST service that I want to test by using Postman? For that, you need to just provide rec res.in. It's open source website where it provides you lot of request messages. If you see here, this get request is to get all the user details. This get request is to get a particular single user details. If I provide 2, then it's gonna give me the details of second user. If I provide 3, it's gonna give me the details of a user who is having ID as 3. Okay, so for that, I want to copy this request message URL and then provide here, provide the URL, entire request REST service URL. Enter. See, it is giving me response with the user 2. Okay. Now I want to automate this. For that, I copied the URL, go to Postman, here under get, because what is is it post, put, get, or what? So mine is get. If you see here, this is get, this is post, create is post, put is to update, patch, delete is to delete. So now because I am using a get operation, I want to select get. And here you need to provide the URL that we copied. Okay, so what is the URL? Let me copy this again. The URL, the entire URL is this. Copy this and paste the URL. Okay, and now if you see here under REST request body, you can see parameters, authorization. For the authorization, if I need to provide some basic authorization, I can provide the basic authorization where I'll be providing my username and password. In generally in the corporate world, we will have the authorization. Okay, and header. What is the header values? Currently my header does not have any key values. Okay, because it's very simple request message. And what is the body? Even I don't have the body. If you see here, uh, to update the request, you will have a body, but this is just to send a request URL so that I can get the response. So the body is not required for this request. Okay, and then you have some pre-request script. I'm going to tell you how to use this pre-request script in the further videos. And also tests. If you have any test cases, you can write your test cases here for this particular API service, so that your test cases will be, whenever you execute this particular request, corresponding test cases will become pass or fail. Okay, I'm going to explain this again in further sessions. Okay, so now let me send this request and see what is the response. If you see at the bottom, I can see the response here. Okay, click on send. So if you see, I got the response. So email is this one. First name is Janet, last name is Weaver, right? And this is my request and then response. And if you see the response, so there are different options. If you want to see the response in pretty format, you just select pretty. It gives you pretty format. If you want to see in the raw format, you select raw. This is my raw format. If you want to see in preview, you can see in the preview. Okay, and other options. And also, what is the response? Because I'm using REST service, my REST response will be in the JSON format. That's the reason I selected JSON. If you are using a SOAP request, then you might be selecting the response with XML format, right? So currently this is a JSON. You can select JSON, or you can select HTML text, whatever the responses you want. Okay, and now and now if your response line is very big, if your response line is like very big, one single line, you can use wrap here. Wrap your text. If you click on wrap your text, it's going to wrap your text and you can see the entire text. Okay, and if you see here, my status, that means the response status is 200k, that means successful response. And what is the time that it took to get the response? If you see, if you hover on the time, it is showing me for socket initialization it took 16 milliseconds. For DNS lookup it took 1 millisecond. For TCP handshake it took 28 milliseconds. For SSL handshake it took 35 milliseconds. So that detail, you can see the entire performance of your request message. When request message is sent from client to a server, right? You can see that the time it took to get the response. And what is the size of your request message? That means what is the size of your body? What is the size of your header? Right? Those are all the options you have. And also, if you want to copy your response body, you can copy here. When you click on this copy, it's going to copy the response to the clipboard. If you want to save your response, you can save the response as a file or as an example. When you click on save to your file, that means this response will be saving into the file. Okay, and if I go to history, I can see that I sent this request message once. So let me send the request message one more time. Okay, let me send the request message one more time. Okay, if you see here, Let me send the request one more time. Okay, send it one more time and go back to history. Now you see you have history of 2 times and send one more time. See, you got third history. That means the history will be storing all your history of your execution. Okay. Now this API, we have not stored this API, right? How to save? That means I did not save this API. How to save the API? Click on save. As soon as you click on save, it's going to ask you to name the request. I'm going to name this as single user. And do you want to create a collection for this request? So what is the meaning of collection? How can we create a collection? How to use the collection? All these concepts I'm going to explain in the next session. Okay, immediate next section. Okay, for now I'm just creating a collection called YouTube collection. Okay, I'm creating this and then I'm going to save it. If you see here now, if you see under collections, a new collection called YouTube collection is created, and now whatever the request message that I created has been stored under the YouTube collection. So really very important concept of collections that I'm gonna cover in the next session. Okay, and if you see the history, so now let me execute this again and go to history. See, you have fourth one. So that means you can create your request and response messages. You can analyze your response this way. And also, if you see, you have an option in the responses. You have an option of looking at cookies and header elements. What are all the header elements that I have in the request? And what are all the test results for this particular request message? Because currently I don't have any tests for this request single user. I don't see any test results. Okay, I'm going to cover the creation of the test cases and test results for any given REST services in the further sessions. Okay, and these are all the options you have, and I'm going to cover rest of the topics in the further session. It's a very simple request message that we have taken, and in our further sessions we are going to cover very complex scenarios and very and also different technical concepts for testing or for testing REST or SOAP request messages. Okay, so it's very important, guys. Stay tuned for the upcoming sessions. If you have any queries, you can provide your queries in the comment box. I'll try to respond to your queries. Please do subscribe to the channel, click on bell icon. You'll receive notifications whenever I publish more videos. Thank you. Hi everyone, this is Ravi. Welcome back to Postman Beginners Tutorial. This is lesson 3 on Postman tool concepts. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you how can we create and manage collections within Postman, and what are all the advantages and what are all the different features that are available in Postman for the collections. Please do subscribe to the channel, click on bell icon. You'll receive notifications whenever I publish more videos. Thank you. So in this lesson, I'm going to teach you what is collection, how to create collections in Postman, and how to create folders inside the collections, and how can you arrange requests inside the collections. First of all, what is collection? The collection is a group of API requests stored and saved in logical arrangement. Okay, so that means let's assume you have a big project and you have to execute around hundreds of the API requests as part of that project validation, and you can logically divide these 100 API requests by using collections. And also there are a lot of advantages of the collections which I'm going to show you once I jump onto the system. So now let's jump onto the system and see how can we create collections and how can we manage collections in executing the API requests and also in automating the API requests. Okay, so this is my Postman. So I already introduced you to the Postman in my previous two sessions. So here first let's create a collection. So there are two ways. Either you can go to file and click on new, or you can directly click on create new collection plus symbol. Okay, let's go to file and create new, and here you need to select collection. Save your request in a collection for reuse and sharing. Okay, click on collection. As soon as you click on collection, a new tab called new collection will be opened, and here you need to name this collection. So let me name this as collection. Okay, I'll do one thing, YouTube collection 2. Okay, this is the name of my collection. And then if you see advantage of the collection is you can set your authorization for the entire collection itself. That means if you are using a common authorization for multiple API requests which are logically divided and you would like to store them in this particular collection, if those multiple API operations are logically interrelated and they are using the same authorization, and then you need to provide authorization once at the collection level, so that you need not to provide this authorization for every API request that you are going to add into this particular collection. Okay. Okay, so now what about prerequisite script? If you see the prerequest script, that means, so here you can write down your automation script that you would like to perform before this collection is being executed. So I'm going to tell you how to create these JavaScripting for the prerequest script in the upcoming video sessions. Okay, so that means before you execute this collection or before you execute all the API requests that you have saved in this collection, you can do some prerequisite, basically pre-request script that you would like to run. Okay, and also if you have any common tests that you would like to automate, you can provide those common tests at collection level itself. And also if the entire APIs that are collected in this collection are using the same variables, then you can define the variables here. Okay, so I'm going to explain how can we use the variables, tests, and pre-request scripts and authorizations at the collection level in future videos. Okay, so for now I don't want to provide any scripting or any authorization here. Okay, and then I think, yeah, so once you create your collection, okay, let me close this. Okay, let me close all the tabs. So if you see this collection, I just now we created YouTube collection 2, and if you click on this view more actions, you can share this collection with anyone, and also you can move this collection between the workspaces. Okay, between the workspaces that we created. So how to create workspace, I've already explained you in my previous session. Okay, and you can run the collection. When you click on run collection, it's going to open a runner window. Okay, where you can select all the API requests that you would like to run. That means, let's say in this collection, if you have 10 API requests, you can select those 10 API requests to run, okay, by using runner. And you can edit this collection. So when you click on edit, it will give you an option to edit your collection. And also there are lot of other options. You can add folders or you can monitor collection. So monitor collection means you want to create a monitor collection where you can run this entire collection at a periodic level. Okay, week timer every day or every Monday, every Tuesday. So basically you can create a monitor so that you can monitor your API requests and their performance. Okay, that is creation of the monitor. And also you can basically view the documentation, you can rename, you can duplicate this, and then you can export this collection, and you can manage the roles, and also you can delete the collection. Okay, so let me explain you how to arrange your API requests. Okay, let's assume I want to add API requests, multiple API requests in this collection. Let's say add request. Okay, get rec 1, and then provide some URL here and save it. Okay, and also create, let's add another request. How to add API request? Click on more options, add request, get rec 2, and then just put some URL here. I'm not putting the actual URL, I'm just saving it. Okay, this is your get request 1, get request 2, and now let's create another request, add request, and name this as post request 1. Okay, and the URL here, and save it. So now I want to arrange all these requests. These are all actually logically interrelated requests. That's why I'm collecting them in one collection. And now I want to arrange these collections. Okay, so first of all I want to create a new folder here, add folder, and then get requests, folder name as get requests. And also you can manage your authorization at folder level also. Just now I told you at collection level, but at folder level also you can manage different authorization, pre-request script, and also your tests, common tests that you would like to perform under, that you would like to perform for all the APIs that are stored in this particular folder. Okay, so once that is done, so I created a folder, and I would like to create another folder, add folder, post requests. Okay, this is another folder. So I've created both the folders. Now I want to arrange these API requests. See, if you see, those folders and the API requests are exist under a same collection that we created now. Now I want to drag and drop all get requests under get request folders. I want to drag and drop post requests under post request folder. So this way you can arrange your API requests at folder level within the collections, right? And there are lot of other activities that you can perform by using collections. Basically there are advanced options that you can use in automating your API requests by using collections, so which I'm going to cover in the further lessons. Okay, so if you have any queries, you can provide your queries in the comment box. I'll try to reply to your queries. Please do subscribe to the channel, click on bell icon. You'll receive notifications whenever I publish more videos. Thank you. Hi everyone, this is Ravi. Welcome back to Postman Beginners Tutorial. This is our lesson 4 on Postman tool concepts. So in this lesson, I'm going to teach you how can we run multiple API requests together by using an option called collections. So in my previous session, I have already explained you how can we create collections and how can we manage collections. So in this lesson, we are going to deep dive into the collections and how can we use these collections in running multiple API requests. Okay, that's what I'm going to explain you guys. Okay, please do subscribe to the channel, click on bell icon. You will receive notifications whenever I publish more videos. Thank you. So as part of this lesson, we are going to create collection, so which I already explained you in my previous session. And then in the collection, I'm going to create multiple REST API requests that I would like to test. Okay. And then I'm going to arrange the request messages in logical order. And then I'll be running the collection using collection runner. And then I'm going to explain you what are all the different options that are available in collection runner that can be used to improve our test run. And then I'm going to teach you how can we analyze the test results from the test runner or collection runner. So now let's jump onto the system and see how can we perform all these actions. So yeah, this is my Postman tool, desktop tool application. Okay, so in my previous session we have already created the collection, right? I've showed you how to create collection and then how can we manage the collections within the folder structure. So now to make it easier, so let me also create another collection so that you people can understand from the beginning, and then we will see how to run the multiple API requests by using collections, collection runner, and then how can what are all the different options that are available in collection runner. Okay, so first let me create a new collection and let me name this as collection 3. Okay, I'm going to name this as collection 3. Under this collection, I would like to add a new request message. Click on add a request, and here I would like to name this as guest users list, get users list. So as I told you earlier, so this is the website where we have multiple REST requests. So I would like to use this. I want to get a list of all users. For that, this is my URL, right? So let me copy this URL. This is my REST URL. I'm going to copy this and then paste the URL here to get list of all the users. Okay, list of all the users, and save this. So if you see under collection 3, I've created one get REST service to get all the list of users. Okay, just test this and see how it works. Send. So I'm getting the response successfully. So if I want to change the response to the view of the response, right? As same as SOAP UI, let's go to view, and then make it as to toggle two pane view or toggle sidebar. Okay, let me this way. So if you see here, I have the request message here and then response here. Okay, I'm getting the response with all the list of users. See, you can see user 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So multiple users. I'm getting the list of users. And what is my next API request that I would like to test? My next one is single user. I want to get a single user response. Okay, so let me copy this, and this is my entire URL. For that, now I want to add another API request here, REST request. For that, what we will do, under collections, view more actions. Here, add request. Click on add request. Name this as get single user. Okay. And then if you see here, now collection 3 is having two requests. For get single user, this is my URL. Just now I copied from here. Save this. And now let's test this. Send the request. Now I'm getting single user Janet Weber. Let's assume if I want to get the user 3, I'll change it as 3. Save this and send this. So now you see Emma Wong. If I change it to 4, I'm going to get someone else, Eve Holt. Okay, so let's save this. So we have added two new API requests that I would like to test. Okay, successfully. And then we see individually we have executed our API requests. So of course, these API requests does not have any bodies, right? And we have not provided any, we have not created any tests also for these requests. So creating tests and creating sending a API request along with the body, I'm going to explain you in further sessions. Okay, for now we are going to concentrate on collections. How can we run the collections? So now this collection has two different API requests. So now I want to run these collections. How can I run the collection? For that, there are two ways. One, either you click on this collection, on right side, on right corner top, you have an option called run collection with a run symbol. Okay, you can click on this, or if you go to view more actions, you have an option called run collection. As soon as you click on run collection, it's going to open a runner pane. If you see here, this is my runner window. What does this has? So runner window will contain all the REST API services that you have added under the collection. Either you can deselect all or you can select all, or if you want to run only one API, you can uncheck one of the API and keep one API request checked. So whatever you check, it's going to run all those API requests. And also you can deselect as I told you, and then as soon as you reset, it's going to reset with by checking all the API requests that are available in collection. Okay, that's a default. And you have a right side iteration. That means if you want to run all these APIs within this collection, how many times? Let's say I want to run twice, two iterations. You can specify as two iterations. And what is the delay? That means, do you want to include any delay between two REST request messages? If you want to include any delay, 2 milliseconds, 3 milliseconds, 5 milliseconds, within, between two request messages, you can specify that. And then you have data. That means if you are parameterizing or if you are storing your variables, okay, within any CSV file or Excel file, you can import those Excel and CSV files and use those variables in the request message by using data file. Okay, that I'm going to cover in the upcoming sessions. So it's very important important concept, but I'm going to cover in upcoming sessions. And then if you want to save the responses, you can check this and keep variable values. That means whatever the, if I am using variables within the APIs, if I want to keep those variables while running the collection, you can keep those variables. And then if you want to run the collections without storing cookies, you can just check this one. And then if you want to save the cookies after collection run, you can check this. Okay. So those are all the options that are available. So now let's run this collection. Okay. As soon as I run this collection, it's going to execute twice. If you see here, because our requests are very small requests, So this is my iteration 1. My first request is being sent and my second request is being sent. One is get user list, get single user. This is first iteration. And if you see here, this is my second iteration. Again, it sent get users list, get single user, right? So, and if you see, because currently we have not included any tests in our APIs, you are not able to see pass fail count. If you include tests, then it's going to show you how many passed, how many failed within the collection. Okay. And if you see on top right corner, you have view summary. If you click on view summary, now I can see summary. So for this iteration 1, iteration 2. For this API request, iteration 1 and 2. If you have results, then it's going to show the results also. And then you have an option called run again. If you click on this run again, it's going to open the, it's going to run the collection again. And then if you want to export the results, you can export the results to your system. Okay. And then and if you go to history, you can see here in the history I have run the collection here. Okay, you can view the results also. See, whatever the results we saw earlier, I can see the same results here. Okay, by using history. So let me close all these tabs. Hope you all understand. So this time let me run the collection from this option. Okay, here right side, run collection. As soon as you click on run collection, it's going to open the runner window. And now this time, let's say I want to run 3 times. And then click on run collection. So now if you see here, there are 3 iterations. Iteration 1, iteration 2, iteration 3. So you have all 3 iterations. And if you see view summary, this time 1, 2, 3. Correct? And then again click on view results. You can see here. And also while running the collection, as I told you, so let's run this collection. Okay, while running the collection, you can select the environment also. If you want to run this collection for QA environment, you can select that, or production environment. So how can we create environments? I'm going to explain you in further sessions. And if you want to add any environment variables or global variables for this collection, you can add them and use them while running. Okay, hope you all understand the advantages and different options that are available to run the collections. Okay, so in future sessions I'm gonna enhance further, and I'm gonna explain you how can we use environment variables, global variables while running the collections, and then how can you pass the variables from request message, from one request to the second request, basically from the first request to the second request, right? So all these concepts I'm going to explain you in the further video sessions. Okay, if you have any queries, please do provide your queries in the comment box. I'll try to respond. Please do subscribe to the channel, click on bell icon. You'll receive notifications whenever I publish more videos on these concepts. Thank you. Hi everyone, this is Ravi. Welcome back to Postman Beginners Tutorial. So this is our lesson 5 on variables. So in this lesson, I'm going to teach you what is variable in Postman and why do we need to use variables in Postman, and how can we create variables, and what are all the different types of variables that we can declare in Postman, and how can we refer the variables while automating your request messages. Please do subscribe to the channel, click on bell icon. You'll receive notifications whenever I publish more videos. Thank you. Okay, so what are variables in Postman? So variables in Postman are similar to what we use for other tools like Eclipse, Visual Studio, right? So variables you declare in Eclipse while writing in Java, right? In the same way, for Postman also, variables can store different types of values. And why do we need these variables? Because by storing the different values in the variable, you can reuse them in multiple places and multiple times. So you need not to declare the value multiple times. So you will be declaring once and you will be using these variables in different places. So that is the reason we use these variables. Okay. And what are all the different types of variables? So we have environment variables in Postman, and also we have global variables in Postman, and also the variables can be declared at collection level. That means if you want to use a variable for the logically divided API request messages that are grouped in a collection, then you can define the variables at collection level as well. Okay, I'm gonna explain how can we use environment variables, how can we use global variables, and how can we use the variables at collection level, okay, in this session, and how to create and refer variables in the Postman. Okay, so I'm going to teach you how can we create and refer variables in Postman. Okay, so now let's jump onto the system and see how can we create them. Okay, okay, so this is my Postman tool. Okay, so in my previous session I have explained you how can we create a collection, and within collection how can you create multiple API requests, and how can we run your collection, right? And I have actually teached you how to run multiple API requests, and then how can you verify the results. Okay, so I would suggest you guys to visit my previous video before you watch this session. Okay, so if you see, in previous session we added these two. One is get users list and the other request is get single user, right? So if you observe closely the URL here, from here, okay, this URL, part of this URL is similar in both the requests. Okay, similar in the both the request. Now I want to store this common part of URL into a variable. I want to store into a variable and then refer that variable here. Okay, so how can I do that? Okay, so for that I need to create a variable. So we can, as I told you earlier, variable can be declared at different levels. So if I click on collection, right, and this is your collection tab, right? Under collection, you can redirect to your variable section. Here, let's declare URL, variable name as URL, and then what is the value? So this is my value, and then current value also gonna be take same. Okay, so what I did, my variable name is URL. I'm storing the value of request rec res.in. I'm storing this value into this variable. Okay, and then save this. Done. So I've saved it. Now I need to refer this variable in URL. Okay, for that, how do we refer? So referring variable is simple. See, double curly braces, close double curly braces. Here you need to specify URL, right? And then let's send a request now. So I replaced with double curly braces, and if you hover on this, see, if you hover here, it clearly says this URL variable has initial value this and current value this, right? So it's pretty easy. So in the latest Postman, only this hovering and then you can see the variable values in the latest Postman only. Okay, so this particular feature is available. Okay, and now let's send this request. So I should get the response. See, I'm getting the response of all the users. In the same way, I want to replace the constant value with my variable. So double curly braces and your variable name. As soon as you hover on here, it will show you the URL. See the URL variable value, right? And now send it. Now it's going to return only the user 4 details, right? It's successfully returning the user 4 details. Now, so what are all the different types? I'm saving this one, okay? So now, what are all the different types of variables that are available? So if you go to your environments, okay, so here the variables can be declared at global level, okay, or variables can be declared at environment level, okay. So let's go back here. If you see, again I'm into collections, okay, I'm into collection, okay. And if you see here, the quick view environment quick look, if you click on right side corner on top, click on environment quick view, if you see here, there is a section called environment and there is a section called globals, right? So currently we don't have any global variables and environment variables declared, so that's why it's showing empty, right? And so currently whatever the variable that we declared here, right, under collection, this is at collection level, so that's why you don't see any variable here, okay. So if you want to add any environment variable, either you can add from here, from environment quick look, and click on add to add the environment variable, okay. So before you add environment variable, first you need to create environment and then add the environment variable, okay. So that is main thing. And if you want to add a global variable, you need to click on add under global section. It's going to create your global variable under globals. That means, what is the difference? See, in the corporate world we generally have multiple environments, and see, let's say you have a QA environment and production environment. So it's not necessary that the variables, what variable values whatever you declare might be different in different environments, right? So that's the reason you're gonna create environment first, and then you're gonna declare the variables according to your environment. And there might be some variables which are global across the environments, so then you will be declaring the variables at global level. So this is one place from where you can declare. Or if you go to environments tab here, right, go to environment tab. If you want to declare the variables at global level, click on globals and then provide your variable, global variable. Let's assume global variable like probably division is one of your global variable. And then what is your value? Let's say this is 460, right? And let's assume you have an environment, QA environment. Then what you're going to do, you need to create a new environment. How? You go here, this is my new environment, rename this as QA, and then provide your variables. Let's assume in QA your division is 460, and let's say I want to create another environment. Click on create new environment here and then name this as production, right? Now your division might be in production, your division might be 300, let's assume, okay. So that means at global level I have created one division, in QA 460, in production it's 300. So that means environment level variables you can declare, global level variables you can declare. Now if you go back here, so if you go here and then see your environment quick look, so you can, let me just refresh this, okay. I have not saved them, okay. Let me save all these, okay. Save this and then save your QA environment variables, save your global variables. Now if you go to quick look, you can see here you have global variables declared already. Why environment is not showing? Because I have not selected the environment. So I have selected the environment as no environment. If you see here, QA environment, if I click here, now I can see in the environment QA, I have defined a variable called division, and also I have declared another variable called division under global level, right? So for today's session, I don't want to concentrate on environments anyway, right? Because I'm gonna publish another video for managing and creating the environments, and how can we use environment level variables and how can we use global level variables in the upcoming sessions that I'm going to discuss. But for now, so we created a variable at collection level, and then we have used that variable under the APIs that are available within the collection. So whatever the APIs that are available within the collection, we have referred that particular variable under URL. Okay. So in further sessions, I'm going to teach you more complex scenarios where I'm going to declare the variables at environment levels, and if I want to use the variables and in the request message, how can we use them? And if I want to store the values, basically let's say I want to store the response. So this is my response, and I want to store email ID of this particular user in the variable, and then I want to use this stored value in my next request message. I want to refer that particular variable in my next API request. So how can we perform? So this kind of complex scenarios I'm going to explain in the next sessions. Okay. Hope you all understand how can we declare the variables at collection level, and how can we create the variables at environment level and global variable level by using Postman. Okay. So if you have any queries, please do provide your queries in the comment box. I'll try to reply to your queries. Please do subscribe to the channel. Click on bell icon. You'll receive notifications whenever I publish more videos. Thank you. Hi everyone, this is Ravi. Welcome back to Postman Beginners Tutorial. This is our lesson 6 on global variables. Basically, it's a continuation of my previous lesson, lesson 5. So in lesson 5, I have taught you how can we create variables at collection level, and then how can you use that variable while sending a request. So this session is a part 2 of my lesson 5, which is lesson 6, and I'm going to teach you some advanced concepts of global variables. Please do subscribe to the channel, click on bell icon. You'll receive notifications whenever I publish more videos on these concepts. Thank you. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you how can we create a variable and how can we store the REST response into a variable. So whenever you send a request, you are going to get the response. So we are going to store the entire response into a variable, and then how can you set global variable to store the required response JSON path, and how can you pass the variable into a request message. So whatever the variable, whatever the JSON path you stored in the above step, so how can you use that global variable while sending a next request message, and then validate the results. So it's very, very important concept. Let's jump onto the system and see how can we perform all these actions. So this is my Postman tool. Okay. So in my previous session, we have created a collection called collection 3, and we have created a variable at collection level. The variable called URL, and we stored the common URL that we are using in both the API request messages, right? And then we stored that URL and then we are referring that collection level variable into a request URL, right? For these two request messages. Okay, so that we have learned. So now in this lesson, let's create some global variables. For that, so if you see, my first request is to get the list of all users. So let's execute this. I'm getting the list of all users here. And my second request message is to get a single user detail. Okay, based on the ID that I'm providing in the URL. I want to retrieve a user with ID 2. I want to retrieve a user details with ID 3, right? So now here our aim is, let's assume I am getting the list of users. If you see, I'm getting the users with ID 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? Now I want to store the entire response, and then I want to pick up the ID of my first user, which is ID 7, right? I want to store this ID 7 into a global variable and pass this ID global variable value into my next request message URL. Instead of 3, I want to send the value that I'm storing in the global variable of this JSON path. So how can we do that? Okay, so now first of all, let's go to my first test. I'm sending a request. So here in this in this request message, I want to, so let me just say previous ones. So here, if I open this request, I can see I'm sending my request here. So here in the body, so let me just expand this. Okay, let me expand this one. So here under tests, if you navigate to tests, see, as I told you earlier, every REST request message will have parameters, authorization, header, body. So I would recommend you guys to visit my previous sessions to understand all these options. So now I want to open tests. Here I'm gonna create a variable called JSON data equal to PM, which is my Postman dot response dot JSON. That means what I am doing, I want to store the entire response into a variable called JSON data. Once I store this, now I want to create a global variable pm.postman.globals dot set. I want to set a global variable called, see, if you see, as soon as I enter here, it is asking me to enter the key string and then the value. I want to create a global variable called ID. And what is the value that I want to store? I want to store the value of, I want to store a value of ID. This is my JSON path, correct? So how can I get the JSON path of this ID? Simple. You copy this response, go to Chrome browser, JSON path finder. Just type JSON path finder. So this is jasonpathfinder.com. Open this and paste the response here, entire response, and open this. This is my first element, this is my second user, right? I want to capture the first user ID. That for that, click on this first user ID, and here if you see the path, this is my path. If I click on email, this is my path. If I click on my second user email, data 1, this is my data 0, right? So now I want an XPath of this particular ID. So copy this JSON path and now go back to your Postman tool. Here, what is the value of your ID? This one. So my value is actually a JSON path. What is that? Take the response. What is the response? I'm storing the entire response in JSON data dot. What is the JSON path? This is my JSON path. That means from the response, from entire response, I want to capture the JSON path, this particular JSON path. I don't want entire response, but I want a particular JSON path called ID. So that's what I'm storing here. That means now save this. If you go to environments, earlier I explained you, and go to globals, if you see I don't have any variable here. Now I'm setting the variable in test called ID. I'm storing that. I'm storing this JSON path into a variable called ID, global variable called ID. Okay, save this. So now whenever I run this particular request, your test is also gonna run, and then your JSON response will be stored here, and then it's gonna set a variable called global variable called ID, and it's gonna store the value from this particular JSON path, whatever the value. Currently it is 7. It's going to store that value here, where in global ID variable. Okay. So now let's send this again. So as soon as I send, now your global variable called ID is created, and the value is this one allocated here. How to know that? Let's go back to your environment variables. Click on globals. So let me just refresh. Okay, let me close this. Okay, let me run this again. Okay, let me run this again. I run this again. Go back to globals. If you see here, I can see ID global variable called ID is created, and my current value is 7. That means if you see here, my current value is 7. Let's assume I want to change this as 1. So this time when I run this time ID should be 8. Send this. If you see here, go to your environment variables, globals. See, this time it's 8. Let's assume I want to capture the email. Instead of ID, email. Copy this. Instead of ID, just name this as email. Save this. Now when I send this, under ID, your email will be stored. Go back to your environment globals. See, under ID, your email is stored. But we need ID only. So I'm storing the ID, first user, which is 0. Save this and send it. Again, now if you go to globals, now your ID is 7. So that means I'm storing a JSON path into a global variable. Required JSON path into a global variable. Now, in the next API request message, what we are doing, we are sending a user details, right? Basically we are getting a particular user detail. Here I am entering 3. Instead of 3, I want to call this particular variable here. So I'm gonna replace this hard-coded value with the variable. How? Variable in generally you need to enter 2 curly braces. As soon as you enter 2 curly braces, it's gonna give you your variables. So this is my global variable. Just select this, That's it. And save this. Now when I execute this time it should give me the details of my user 7th user, correct? So now let's go back here and now execute this. See, now ID is 7 and my details are these. Now let's assume I want to store another ID. I'll do one thing. I'm going to store this as ID1, right? Now I want to store second user ID as well. ID1, ID2. Here, this is my 1, data 1. That means it's going to store under global variable ID1, it's going to store 7. ID2, it's going to store 8. So before that, let's remove my previous global variables. Delete this global variable. Now let's run this. Send it. It's sent and 2 global variables gets created and 7 and 8 values should be stored. So let's go to globals now. If you see here, oh sorry, I want to save this. Let's run this again, okay, because there is a conflict. I did not save it. So let's run my previous here. This is my test, right? Let's run this again. So now if you open your globals, it should create 2. See, ID1 and ID2, values 7 and 2. So now here in my, I want to duplicate this one. Right click, duplicate. And this time here instead of ID, because we deleted ID, we created ID1 and ID2. That's it. These two are valid now. Save this. So now let's run all 3 together. First one, we are storing ID1 and 2. And then second one, ID1 we are sending in third one. That means ID1 user details. Third one, ID2 user details. That means 7th user, 8th user, ID 8 user. Okay. Now let's run all these together. Close everything. So now run this collection. In earlier session, I already told you how to run the collections. Okay. So you can visit my previous video. Select this cell collection and then click on run. As soon as you click on run, so first it's going to execute first one and then it's going to store 2 variables, ID1 and ID2. And those 2 variables we are sending in next request messages sequentially. And run this collection. See, you are successfully run, this is successfully run and this is successfully run. Okay. So that means we are successfully able to create your global variables. I am able to set the global variables from the script whenever I send a request message, and then I'm able to store my JSON path values into those global variables, and I am able to send those global variables in my next request messages. Hope you all understand. So this is really very important concept, guys. So in the organizations, in the corporate world, we have to store the response messages into variables and you have to use them in the next request messages, right? It's very important while automating your test cases. Okay, so if you have any queries, please provide your queries in the comment box. I'll try to respond to your queries. Please do subscribe to the channel, click on bell icon. You'll receive notifications whenever I publish more videos. Thank you. Hi everyone, this is Ravi. Welcome back to Postman Beginners Tutorial. This is our lesson 7 on creation of different environments in Postman. So I'm going to teach you how can we create different environments, and then how can we manage variables at environment level. So in my previous two sessions, lesson 5 and 6, I've already covered how can we create variables at collection level, and then how can we create global variables. So it is recommended to go through those two videos before you watch this session. Please do subscribe to the channel, click on bell icon. You'll receive notifications whenever we publish more videos. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to teach you what is environment, how to create environment and the variables at environment level, and how to use environment variables, and how can we delete the environment and the variables that we created at environment level. Okay, so now first of all, let's understand what is environment. Okay, let me show you a small example. So in the corporate world, we generally have a different environments. What do you mean by different environments? One is dev environment. You might have QA environment. You might have UAT environment. You might also have sit environment and production environment. So let's remove our dev environment because we are not at all bothered about dev environment. So if you see in QA environment, let's say my application URL will be different compared to QA environment. Sorry, compared to your production environment. Let's say in QA, my QA URL is qa.example. This is my QA URL, and then my UAT application URL is uat.example.test project. And then in sit, my application URL will be sit dot, and in production, this is my URL. So nothing is in front of example. Okay, so that means for each environment, we will have a different URLs for the applications. I'm not gonna test the same application in different environments. So developers is gonna create different URLs for each environment. Okay, so now how can we manage all these URLs and within different environments? And also let's assume I have a username to login. So username for QA might be QA test and password 12345, and then username for UAT might be UAT test and the password is 12345. So and so on. So the user details or the test data might not be same in all environments. So you may need to use a different data sets in different environments. So how can we manage all these environment variables including the different URLs? As we understood what is environment and why do we need different environments, and then why do we need a different variable values for the environment, right? So now let's see practically how can we create environment and the variables by using Postman. Okay, so for that, so in earlier session we have created a collection 3, and then we added the following request messages within the collection 3, right? So for this session we are going to use a new request message which is a post method. So if you see here, to register a new user, I would like to use a post method. Okay, so for this post method you will have a request body also. Okay, this time we are going to have a request body for the rest request message. And what is the URL? This is your URL. Copy this URL. Okay, so before I proceed, I would like to create a new folder here within the collection 3. I would like to create a new folder and name this as post request. All the post request messages I'm going to collect them here, and then now add a request, and here I would like to name this as register user. Okay, and what is the method? As I told you, this is a post method. Correct, this is a post method. So here, instead of get, select post and then paste the URL that we have copied here. Okay, and now go to your request body. See, this is my body, and select raw and the format as JSON. This is my JSON format, right? And copy the request body, sample request body from here, and paste it here and run this and see what happens. As soon as I run, it should create, see, for this the user is successfully registered and ID is created at 9 and your unique token is this. So it's successful. Save this. Now let me explain one thing. See, in the corporate world, as I explained you earlier, the URL in QA is different from the URL in production. What if I want to test this particular request in QA environment separately, and then after that I want to test this in the post-production environment? Then I cannot use the same URL here. And also, test data like email and password will not be same in QA and production. Generally, we manage different. So now that means the values and the values of this email and password are changing within the different environments, and your URL also changing. So let's say here, see, in the QA environment, my URL is this, and my email ID is the same email ID that I have used, and my password is pistol, which is same password that I have used. Let's assume in production environment, URL will not be same. Let's assume my URL is, at the end I have a prod, and also the email I have eve.prod instead of eve.halt, and the password also pistol prod. So now the values for these, in basically the input is changing for different environments. So that means I can manage these different values in different environments. For that, let me create environments in Postman tool first. Okay, let me create two environments, which is QA environment and production environment. For that, for that, there are two methods. Either you can create environments from the quick look by clicking on add, or you can go to left side panel environments module and click create environment. Let me create environment here and name this as QA environment. Okay, and then let me create another environment. This time let me use quick look, add prod environment. Okay, I have created two environments. Now let's go to QA environment, add the variables. What are all the different variables I have? One is URL. What is my URL? Is this. So let's name this as URL. This is my first environment variable. And what is my second variable? Which is email, right? Email. And what is the value? My email is in the QA. This is my email ID, my initial value, and next one is password. What is my password? Pistol is my password. Correct? Done. So save this. I've created a QA environment and I have provided all the variables and the corresponding values for the variables. Okay, so now let's create another environment, production environment. Okay, okay, so let's, now as we already defined QA variables with the different values, now let's create variables for production, right? So instead of creating new variables here, I would like to do one thing. Delete this. I would like to use a duplicate function. QA environment. Let me duplicate this environment, duplicate, and rename this as prod environment. So which carries all the values whatever we entered earlier. So here the URL, I want to keep the URL as same, but here my email and password changes, right? So here my email is prod instead of halt, prod, and here my password is, I'm adding prod, and save this. So now I've created two environments with the same variables, but the variable values are different, right? So now let's assume this particular request I need to execute in QA environment. For that, I would like to replace, because now it is hard coded values. But instead of hard coding, I would like to use the variables that we have created for the QA environment, right? So for that, here instead of URL, how to refer the variable with double curly braces. As soon as I click on double curly, sorry, so let me just, as soon as I enter double curly braces, it should show me the variables. Okay, 1 minute. So it is fine. So now if you see here, as soon as I enter URL, I can see the variable here. Let me see, let me do one thing. I think it's not coming here. Let's go back to, I have already saved this production environment, QA environment. Perfect. Let me save this. Let me open this again. Okay, open this. Here URL, somehow it's not referring, basically it's not coming. Okay, understood. Why? Because first I need to select the environment here. So if you see on top right corner, I have not selected any environment. We have created two environments. One is QA and one is production. So for that you need to select the environment. Let me select QA environment here. Now as soon as I enter two curly braces, it will give me all the environment variables that are defined in the QA. Select this, and in the email body, instead of this hard-coded value, I would like to call this email, variable. So what is the variable here? Let me again go and see. My variable is email, and then here my variable is password. Done. Save this. So now if you hover on this, it is already showing me the URL, correct URL. Now let me execute this and see how does it's gonna register the user. When I execute this, it should successfully register the user. Okay, so if you see QA environment, let's go back here. I can see this is my QA environment and this is my, okay, okay. So let's go back here. Now it should successfully execute. Okay, before this, I want to add one thing here. Content type as application-json. Here, this is the one I would like to validate. Okay, okay, so let's see email. I think again we made a mistake. See, this is, anytime you enter the variable, right, you have to copy, better to copy from here. Okay, email, let's copy the password also. Okay, so now save this. Now you send it. If you see here, now it is successful. Let's assume I want to execute this with the production values. The variable remains same, but the values of this input changes. So for that you have to change the environment to production. Now this time it will take the production values, these eve prod, pistol prod, because we have changed the values which the user should not be registered successfully, because these values are not actually predefined, okay, for this particular sample request. Let me send this now. If you see here, it's going to say only defined users succeed registration, because this particular sample website, they gave only this defined username, email id and password to get registered. Okay, if you provide some other values, it's not going to register. So that is correct. So that means it is taking the new values from the production for the second time, right? So now hope you all understand how to create the environments and how can you manage the values, different values for different environments, and how to delete the environment. You just need to either you can go here and then edit it and delete it, or you can click on this more actions and directly click on delete and confirm the delete. So that's going to delete your entire environment and the corresponding variables also. If you want to delete the specific variable, you just hover on this variable, the last row, and then click on cross button. So it's going to delete your entire variable. Okay, hope you all understand the concept. So if you have any queries, provide the queries in the comment box. I'll try to respond to your query. Please do subscribe to the channel, click on bell icon. You'll receive notifications whenever I publish more videos. Thank you. Hi everyone, this is Ravi. Welcome back to Postman Beginners Tutorial. This is our lesson 8 on Postman tool concepts. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you how can we create tests within the Postman and how can we create a quick scripts within the Postman by using snippets. Please do subscribe to the channel, click on bell icon. You'll receive notifications whenever I publish more videos. Thank you. Okay, so in this lesson, I'm going to teach you how can we create scripts using snippets option at collection level by using Postman. And also I'm going to teach you how can we create scripts using snippets at API request level and also at folder level. And what are the tests in Postman, and I'm going to teach you how can we create tests at collection level, and you can create tests at folder level, and also you can create tests at API request level. And then I'm going to teach you how can we analyze the test results. So this might end up in 2 sessions. Probably this might be our part 1 session, and probably I might end up publishing another part for these concepts to cover. Now let's jump onto the system and see how can we perform all these actions by using Postman tool. So this is my Postman tool. Okay, so in our previous session, if you remember, we have already worked on the post request, get request, and also I have explained you about environment variables, global variables, and then lot of other concepts. Okay, I would recommend you guys to please do visit those sessions before you watch this session. Okay, so now, so this is my request message, API request message to get a single user detail, right? So whenever I send this, it's going to retrieve me the user. If you see the endpoint here, so this is my global variable where I'm storing the URL, part of URL. Okay, and here I'm sending the user ID. If I send user ID 3, then it's going to retrieve me another person. If you see Emma Wong, if I send user 5, it's going to return fifth user, Charles Morris, right? So that's the single user request message. Okay, so now instead of sending this hard coded value, I would like to send a random value. Okay, so for that, so how can I do that? So for that, let me just save this. Okay, so how can I send the random values? So before I explain those concepts, let's see, there is a concept called pre-request script. Pre-request script. That means before I send this request, what are all the actions that you would like to perform? So that you can define in pre-request script here. Okay. So then how can I write the script? So this entire script happens in JavaScript. Okay. In Postman. Okay. So there is a concept called snippets. Okay. So by using these snippets, you can quickly write the scripting. For example, if I want to set a global variable, I want to set a global variable. So as I told you, instead of sending this constant value, I would like to send a random value. For that, what I need to do, before I run this request, I need to generate a random value, and store that into a variable before I run this particular request. So that's the reason I would like to use my pre-request script. So here, to generate a random value, I would like to define a constant. My constant will be user ID. This is my user ID. I'm going to store that constant random value, generated constant value, into user ID. Okay, and I'm going to use my math function dot floor, and here math dot random. Okay, and then I would like to multiply by 10, and then I would like to add 1. Why? Because it's going to generate the random value of 1 digit. Okay, it's going to generate a random value of 1 digit. Done. Now I'm generating a random value and I'm storing it in user ID, but I need to define a global variable so that I can store this user ID random value, so that I can store this random value into a global variable. How can I do that? It's simple. You need to use snippet. Set a global variable. So let me select this snippet. As soon as you click on this set a global variable snippet, it's going to generate your script automatically. PM, which means postman.globals.set. What is the key value that you would like to keep? Okay, I would like to name this as user ID because I'm passing the user ID here, right? I want to pass the user ID random value under this. So I'm naming this global variable as user ID. And what is the value? My value is this one. Whatever the random digit that is generated from here, right? So I would like to pass that as a value. Okay, and save this. So that means now I'm setting a global variable called user ID. If I go to my environments from the left side panel and go to globals, so let me delete this. Okay, so if you see here, I don't have a global variable called user ID here now. Okay, I already saved it under globals. I have only two variables, ID1, ID2. Now in this request, we are setting a global variable, before I run this session, basically when I run this request, first it's going to execute your pre-request script, and then only it's going to execute your request. So now let me execute this. Okay, let me execute this. Send a request. I sent a request, but the ID is generated 5 only because I specified 5 constant. But I want to verify whether it's generated a it's created a global variable or not. Okay, let's go back to environment globals. If you see, it created a new global variable called user ID. And what is the random value that it generated? It generated 10. Let me generate one more time. Let me send the request one more time. Let's go back to here again. If you see, this time it generated a random value 9, and that is stored in a variable called user ID, right? So now let's remove this again. Let's remove this again. So now we are generating a random value, but I want to use this user ID global variable in the URL. So how can we do that? To get a global variable, you need to specify your variable name here. Okay, so let's go back to collection, environment collections and globals. Let me save this. Okay, so now if you come here, so now if you see, this is not defined yet because the user ID variable is not generated, not created yet. Okay, I'm just specifying here as a user ID as variable because I'm setting up the same variable. Okay, save this. So now let's see, currently I don't have a global variable called user ID. That's why it's throwing error message saying unresolved. But however, when I run this, before running this script itself, it's going to create this user ID as a variable, and it's going to store the random value, and then the same thing will be passed here. Okay, now let's send this. So if you see, this time ID is 7. That means it generated a random value of 7, and then it's created a user ID global variable, and it stored that 7 here. Let's go here and see now. Under globals, you can see user ID, and you already have a random value of 7. And the same thing has been passed here, and then I am getting the details of 7th user here. Now let me send it again. This time 6. Let me send it again. This time 3. If you go back to environment variables again, globals, this time 3, correct? And the same thing has been sent here also, right? So now, what about if I want to set an environment variable? What I can do? So let me do one thing. Set an environment variable. Select this. If you see here, pm.environment.set. Here, I want to set a user ID 1 this time. The variable name, the environment variable name as user ID 1. And what is the value? I want to pass the same value here also. Let's put this here. Pass the same value. Save it and send it. If you see, now let's go back to environments, and I can see here. Okay, let me close this. Okay, let me delete this one more time. Okay, let me execute one more time. Okay, give me a minute, save this. Because earlier the global variable was there. Okay, let me send this again. So now it should create a global variable user ID, and it should create an environment variable called user ID 1. If I go to environment, but which environment? It created a under QA environment. If I go back here, if you see, because I have selected an environment as QA, that's why. Let's assume if I don't select any environment. Okay, let's go back to QA environment, delete this global variable, sorry, delete this environment variable, because now I'm not selecting any environment. If I execute this now, what happens? If I go to here, it's not going to generate any environment variable in any environment because I have not selected any environment here. Let's assume I want to select a production environment now. Okay, now let's send this now. As soon as I send, Now it should create an environment variable under environment production, right? Send it, and now go back to environments. Now this time select prod environment. You see here, I can see user ID, environment variable, and the corresponding value. If you see here, the same thing has been sent here, 4, correct? Now that is done. And what about if I want to create a variable at collection level? So what do you mean by collection level? If you see here, in earlier sessions, right, I have explained you how can you create variables at collection level. Okay, so let's delete let's keep it here. Okay, how can we create the variables at collection level? I already showed you. We created manually we created a variable called URL, and we are storing that variable here at collection level, right? So now I want to create this kind of variable by using script. How can I do that? So now let's create set a collection variable. Select this snippet, and I want to name this as user ID 3. And what is the value I want to store? I want to store the same value from random value that we are generating here. Okay, and save this. Now when I run this particular request, it should create. So I'll do one thing. I'm gonna comment out this one. Okay, so it should, when I run this, it should create a variable at collection level. Okay, if you see, currently at collection level I have only URL. Okay, variable URL. So now let's send this. Before it send the request, it's going to create a variable at collection level. Okay, if I go back here, if you see, user ID 3 is created and the random value that is generated has been stored here. Okay, so this is the way you can basically generate the global variable, variables at collection level. Let's assume if I want to clear this collection level variable, what I'm going to do? So I want to clear, see, as soon as the test case is executed, as soon as my request is executed successfully, I want to clear this environment variable, and then I want to clear this global variable, collection level variable. So then what are we going to do? Clear environment variable. What is the variable that you want to clear? I want to clear this user ID 1, and select clear collection variable from snippet. And what is the variable that you want to delete? I want to delete user ID 3, right? I want to clear this. Save it here. Now if you see, under environment, under production, you already have user ID 1. Under collections, at the collection level, you have user ID 3, correct? So now when I execute this script, now it's gonna create user ID 1, and it's gonna store the random value, and then immediately it's gonna clear that particular variable. In the same way, collection level. If I run this, now I should not see any environment variable called user ID 1, and I should not see any collection level variable called user ID 3. Let's go back to environment. Under production, see, I don't have user ID 1 now because it's after execution, it's deleted, it's cleared. Sorry, before execution it's cleared. Okay, in the same way, collection level, it's cleared your user ID 3. So that means, let's assume, generally we don't use this setting up environment and clearing the environment in the same request. Generally what happens, probably delete this here. I want to copy this here. In generally what happens, in the next request, I want to delete here. Okay, in the same way, I want to clear my environment variable. See, in real time, I'm talking about in real time, we generally don't clear the values in the we generally don't use set and clear values in the pre-request script of same request. Okay, so what I'm going to do, user id 1. Generally, in the next request, before I execute this request message, I want to clear out all the variables that I have created in my previous script, right? So when I execute this entire collection, when I execute this entire folder, then it's going to create the global variables, environment variables, and then collection variables. So let's send this. If you see here, now I should have global level variable, user ID, environment level variable, user ID 1, collection level variable, user ID 3. But so here, let me clear even global variable. Clear global variable also. Let me clear a global variable. Global variable name is user ID. So now I want to move this clearing the global variable in the next request. I cleared everything. Save it. So now when I execute this, it already set up all the global variables, environment variables, collection variable. Now in the next request, when I execute this, it should clear all of them. Execute this and see here, global, it's cleared, environment, it's cleared, and collection, it's cleared. You understand, right? So it's really very important concept, guys. This is how you can run your pre-request scripts before running your actual API request. So you can, it's really very, very useful in the corporate world how to create your pre-request scripts so that you can create different types of variables. Okay, and then you can use them while sending the request. Okay, hope you all understand. So now what is our next agenda? Next agenda item is tests. How can we create test cases? I mean, how can we automate your request messages? That means how can you automate your test cases to validate the API request messages? So that I'm going to explain you in the upcoming session, immediate next session. Okay, stay tuned. So if you have any queries, please do provide your queries in the comment box. I'll try to respond. Please do subscribe to the channel, click on bell icon. You'll receive notifications whenever I publish more videos. Thank you. Hi everyone, this is Ravi. Welcome back to Postman Beginners Tutorial. This is our lesson 9 on Postman API tool concepts. So in my previous session, I've already explained you how can we use or how can we generate scripts very quickly by using snippets in Postman tool. So this is a part 2 of our previous lesson. So I would recommend you guys to go through that video before you watch this session. So in this session, I'm going to cover the topics related to tests. That means how can we automate the test cases, API test cases by using Postman, or how can we perform testing of API requests by using Postman, and how can we use the module called tests in Postman. So please do subscribe to the channel, click on bell icon. You'll receive notifications whenever I publish more videos. Thank you. So in this lesson, I'm going to cover what are tests in Postman and how can we create tests at API request level, and how can you create tests at collection level, and also how can we create tests at folder level. and then I'm going to teach you how can we analyze the test results that you have automated. Okay, so now let's jump onto the system and see how can we perform all these actions by using Postman tool. Okay, so this is my Postman tool. Okay, so if you remember in my previous session, I have explained you about your pre-request scripts. How do we create pre-request scripts? By using snippets, right? So in this lesson, I'm going to concentrate on, so basically we are going to use the same operations. The first operation, first service is get users list, which is going to give me the entire list of users. Okay, in the same way, I'm going to use a single user request. That means this particular URL, this particular request brings you the details of single user, details of this single user. Okay, so that's what I'm gonna teach you. Let me just make sure that, okay, so do one thing, let me do one thing. Okay, so let me send this, and then you're gonna get the response here immediately. See, you got the response. That means I enter ID 3, then it's gonna give me the details of user ID 3. Okay, so now in this lesson, I'm gonna teach you about the tab called tests. In Postman, you have a tab called tests. Why do we use tests? The tests, the script, whatever you write under tests tab will be executing after the request has been executed. That means as soon as I send this request, the first request will be executed. I'm going to get the response, and then your script in tests will be executed. That means if I want to validate the response, let's assume I want to validate whether the email ID is Michael or not, right? Then I need to write the test here so that as soon as I receive the response, it's going to validate the JSON paths or the status of your request, right? So all these sorts of things, basically whatever the operations that you want to perform after the response that you will be performing by using tests. Okay, so now let me, for this particular get users list, first test I want to make sure that I want to test whether the response code is 200 or not. As soon as I get the response, I want to validate the response code. Okay, for that, if you go down here, status code 200, so I can just click on here. So this one, what is going to do, it is validating if the status code, response status code is 200 or not. pm.test is a function, test function, and then pm.response, it is looking for a status code 200. So let's send this. See, now the request has been sent, and if you see here the results, if you see the results here, let me see the results. Okay, I can see test result, my status code is passed. That means status code is 200, that's why the test is passed, my first test is passed. Now let's go and insert the second test. What is the second test I want to perform? I want to see if the response is less than 200 milliseconds or not. Add this, and now send this, and now you see I have another test case or another test where the response is less than 200 milliseconds. Let me make the response, I am expecting the response should be 20 milliseconds, and see what happens. Send the request. If you see, my response is below 20 milliseconds, which is wrong. That means my test is fail. My performance of the request is not less than or equal to 20 milliseconds. But if I make it as 200 milliseconds, yes, the response is less than 200 milliseconds. Okay, done. And let's assume, so let me explain one quick scenario here. Okay, so whenever I am sending a request, I'm getting a response. See, I'm getting response here. I want to store id. I'm getting the id of my first user. My first user id is 7. I want to store this value, and the same id I would like to send in the subsequent request message, which is for single user. Instead of hard coding this value, I want to send the id from the response of my first API. How can we do that? So here in test, not only by using test module, not only you can test, but also you can create your global variables by using test. How? As soon as I get the response, I want to store this value. What I can do? I can do one thing. I can create a variable here where JSON data equal to pm dot response, pm postman dot response dot JSON. Means I'm creating a JSON path. Okay, now I want to create a global variable pm.globals.set. What variable I want to create? id1 is one global variable, and here whatever the JSON variable here, I want to use that JSON data, whatever the variable I created here, right? And dot, what is that you want to capture? I want to capture this one, right? So now to know what is the JSON path, as I explained to you in my earlier sessions, open the JSON finder, and if you see here, the data is already there. This is my first ID element. What is the ID element? Data 0 ID. So here I want to put that particular JSON from the response. I want to capture the particular ID, particular JSON element, right? JSON path. So I am setting a variable called id1, and I am storing the value of this one, the JSON data response. Within that I'm taking only data 0 ID, which is this one. Okay, so now if I go to environment variables, sorry, the global variables, let me go to global variables. You don't see id1 variable. Now when I run this request, now first it's going to send the request, and then it's going to get the response, and it's going to validate the status code 200, and then it's going to validate the response within 200 milliseconds, and then it's going to create id1 global variable, and it's going to store the value. Now let's go back to because I already executed. Go to environments, globals. Now if you see, id1 global variable is created and the value is 7. Done. Now in get single user, I want to, instead of hard coding here, I want to use the global variable. See, if you see here, there is a global variable id1, right? Now if I send this, it should send a global variable id of 7. You should get the response of 7 user, right? Send it. See, you are getting the 7 user response. Now I want to validate whether I am getting the 7 as a response or not, right? See, when I send this request, I don't know what ID has been sent. I should get a response of ID 7. Whatever the ID I captured here, I should get the same response here, correct? So now how can we validate the JSON path? So by using tests, you can insert a new test called JSON value check, this one. And here the JSON value, what is the value? I want to take the JSON path, copy this and paste it here. Take the JSON path. So this is my JSON path and put the JSON path here. Done, and send it now. As soon as you send it, now you can see the result. You can see the result here. Okay, let me see the result. See, the result is, it says expected. Okay, here what is the expected value? I am expecting 7, right? Now send it. See, now your test is passed. That means whatever the response I got is matching with the expected result. Now let's assume I want to capture the element of 2, that means which is 8. Okay, I want to capture. For that I want to change it to 1. Okay, sorry, I'll do one thing. Okay, let me do one thing. Let me just copy this. Let me insert another, let me create another variable called 2, and here in this time 1, data set 1, that means it's going to store 8. Okay, let me send this now. So if we go to environments, I should see a new variable called id2 and the value called 8. Perfect. And now go to single user now. Here instead of id1, I want to use id2. This time what is my expected result? My id2 is 8. That means my expectation is it should, the id, whatever the response I'm going to get should be 8, right? Save this and then execute it. See, now let's see the result. See, that means my test is passed. So I want to change this as id validation, id response, id validation in response, right? Send this. So now your id validation in response is passed, right? So this way, now if I want to execute these two tests together, right, I can execute these two tests together. So let me just save. I want to just close all the tabs to avoid confusion. Okay, so now I want to run these two tests together. First, what I'm doing, I'm sending a request and then I'm validating a get users list. I'm validating the response code 200 and the response is within the 200 milliseconds or not. And then I'm storing the ID of user from the response. I'm storing that into a global variable. And the same global variable I'm using here. And then I'm testing whether the response ID is correct or not in the second single user request message. Now I'm going to execute all these together. Run these two, run collection. If you see here, my first get users list, first test case is pass, second test is pass, right? And then your status code is 200. And what about the single user? The single user, see, if you see, all the tests are passed. For the single user, I'm getting the correct ID response, right? So this way you can easily automate your API request test cases to validate the response messages. So hope you all understand the difference between pre-request script, which I explained in my previous session, and your tests, right? Now if I want to see, instead of defining all these tests here, I can define all these tests at folder level as well. If you go to folders, you can find the tests here and then you can perform the same test here at the folder level also, as well. And also you can define these tests at collection level as well. If you, this is my collection, under collection I have these two folders, right, which I created in my previous sessions. At collection level also you can perform these validations, if you want to perform these validations, okay, at collection level, at folder level, at request level. Okay, hope you all understand. It's really very important concept, because whenever you execute any API request, it is must to validate your response, whether the response validation is correct or not, whether the response is properly, I have received the response correctly or not. So that is your responsibility to validate, right? Hope you all understand the concept very well. I'm going to cover more technical concepts in further videos. Stay tuned, and please do subscribe to the channel. Click on bell icon. You'll receive notifications whenever I publish more videos. Thank you. Hi everyone, this is Ravi. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is our lesson 10 on Postman tool concepts. So as you all know, in my previous video, I have covered some of the topics related to how can you create scripts in Postman, and also how can you create tests in Postman. I would recommend you guys to please do visit my previous lesson 9 part 2, before you watch this particular session. So in today's session, I'm going to cover how can we perform debug in Postman automation tool. So how can you perform debug by using console, Postman console, by in Postman tool. So this is what I'm going to cover in this lesson. So let's go ahead with the concepts that I'm going to cover in this lesson. Okay, the first one is how to debug in Postman. That's what I'm going to teach you. And then how to open Postman console in the Windows, and also how can you analyze the information in Postman console so that you can perform debug very effectively. And then how can you clear the logs from the console, and then what are all the different functions that are available to print the logs in the console system. Okay, I'm going to explain all these things in this particular lesson. Please do subscribe to the channel, click on bell icon. You'll receive notifications whenever I publish more videos on these concepts. So now let's jump onto the system and see how can we perform debug by using Postman tool. Okay, so this is my Postman tool. Okay, in my previous session, I have explained you guys the concepts of how to script in Postman. So scripting in prerequisite tab, that means before you execute any API, if you want to perform some actions, you can write the actions in the form of scripts by using snippets. That's what I have explained you guys. Okay, and also how can you write tests in Postman by using snippets, right? And how to write tests by your own by using Java language, right? So all these concepts I have already explained you. So I would recommend you guys to visit my previous video. Okay, so in this session, as we are concentrating on debugging skills, right? How to debug in Postman. So we will be debugging in Postman by using console option. So how to open the console in the window, right? This is my Postman tool. At the bottom left corner, right? If you see, I have online, I have find and replace button, and also I have a console button, right? You need to click on console option. This will open a new console window, right? So this is how you can open your console window. And then how to analyze the information in console. Let me show some example. Okay, So this is my request message where I am getting a single user details. The user called ID 8, right? When I send this request on console, you see I got the response here. On console, what I can see is I sent a request message of this, and then which is a get function, and here I have my request header, and then this is all my request header information, and this is all my response header information, and this is all my response body. If you see, this is my response body, right? And also if you see in the URL, in the API endpoint, I'm using a variable called URL, correct? The variable value, I want to see whether the variable value has been sent correctly or not. How? If you go to your console, if you see in the variable, I'm passing the value as https recrest.in. If you see here in the console, I can see the value is being sent as https colon double slash recrest.in, and then hard-coded value API users, and then ID2. What is the ID2? This is again a variable. What is that it sent? It sent 8. In the variable called id2 it sent 8. That is correct. That means I can analyze my variables and the corresponding variable values is being sent correctly or not. Correct? So that is one advantage. And also if I want to push some additional information, let's say this is my test. What is my test? My test is to validate if the response of my single user has a value of 8 or not. If you see here the JSON path I'm specified, so I explained you about the JSON paths, how to declare the JSON paths in my previous videos. Okay, so you can visit my previous videos. So in this particular JSON path, whether I have ID of 8 or not, that's what I am validating. Let's say I want to log this information. How? Console dot log. What information I want to pass? The ID is returned. The ID is returned as 8 correctly. Let's say I want to pass this. So before I run this, I want to clear the console. How can I clear the console? At here in the right side corner, you have a button called clear. So see, now the entire console is cleared. There are no logs available. Now let me run this API request again. Now this time you should have an additional information called the ID is returned as 8 correctly. See here, apart from this request, I'm also logging an information the ID is returned as 8 correctly. What if want to log a warning message? Console.warn, the ID might not be correct. Okay, let me clear the logs again by using clear button and run this again. If you see here, now there is a warning message called the ID might not be correct, right? Okay, let's say now I'm actually expecting a value of 8, sorry, the value of 7, but it is actually returning me a value 8, correct? So now I want to send an information error. I want to send an error to console. The ID printing is wrong, printing as 8 instead of 7. Let's say this one. Okay, now let's clear the logs and then send it. So if you see here, now I can see there is an information, but there is an error also, right? The ID printing is wrong, printing as 8 instead of 7. That means, so it is really very much recommended whenever you write your tests or whenever you write some scripts, it is necessary for us to push some of the logs to console so that it is very easy for us to debug very big scripts. Okay, hope you all understand how to debug in Postman, how to open Postman console window, and how can you analyze the information in Postman console, and how to clear the logs by using your clear button, correct? And then how can you push the different types of information like info, warning, errors, right, while writing your scripts. So hope you all understand the concepts. So if you have any queries, please do post your comments in the comment box. I'll try to respond to your queries. Please do subscribe to the channel, click on bell icon. You'll receive notifications whenever I publish more videos. Thank you. Hi everyone, this is Ravi. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is our lesson 11 on Postman beginners tutorial concepts. So in this lesson, I'm going to teach you a very important concept. How can we run any script or any test of the Postman in a command line? So basically how to run Postman scripts by using Windows command line. So this is very important concept for our upcoming session where I'm going to teach you how to integrate your Postman with a continuous integration tool like Jenkins. Okay, how can we run our tests from Jenkins? Okay, so this is a very important session. Once you understand this session, I mean these concepts, how can we run the Postman scripts from command line? So the same concept we are going to use for the integration of Jenkins with Postman. Please do subscribe to the channel, click on bell icon. You'll receive notifications whenever I publish more videos on Postman. Thank you. Okay, so how can we run from command line? How can we run Postman from command line? So the prerequisites are, first we need to install node.js, and then we also need to install node package manager. Okay, and then we need to install Newman. What is this Newman? Newman is a command line collection runner for Postman. And then we need to export the collection and run from command line. Once you export the collection as a JSON file, so basically from Postman you need to export the collection where you have all the scripts written, right? So you need to export that entire collection as a JSON file, and then you need to go to the location of that particular JSON file and run the command in the command line. So this is the procedure that we are going to follow. So I'm going to teach you step by step, including how to install the node.js and how can we install the npm and how to install Newman, right? And then how can we run the scripts from command line. Okay, so let's jump onto the system and see how can we perform all these actions. This is my system. So first we need to install node.js. So let me check if I have a node.js in my system. For that, I'm opening my command line and let's see node-v. See, if the node.js is installed, then you're gonna get the version of the node.js here. But what we are getting node is not recognized. That means our node.js is not installed. Or you can also use npm-v, which is node package manager. So if you see, npm is not recognized. That means npm and node.js are not installed in my system. First, let's install node.js. So download node.js, and you need to go to node.js downloads. Okay, yeah, this one. And I'm going to download the node.js. If you see, this is your long-term service related version, and this is current feature. Okay, so better, it's recommended to install long term. Okay, so let's install Windows installer because I'm using Windows machine. Okay, as soon as you, so let me save this in downloads folder. Okay, so and then see, once this file is downloaded, open the path. I think it's still downloading. Let's wait for a minute. Okay, let's go to downloads. I think it's still downloading. Okay, so node.js is installed, right? So now double click on this node.js and then click on next, accept terms and license agreement, next, program files, node.js, all the files will be storing there, next. And if you see here, it is also installing your npm package manager, right? Okay, next, and then next, click on install. So as soon as you complete installing node.js, we also need to install our npm package, correct? So let install the node.js now. So it will take a couple of seconds, so you bear with me. So installation is finished. Now let's clear this. So let's execute node-v. It should recognize node-v. Let's go back here. If you see, now I am getting the version of 16.17, right? So that means node.js is already installed. And also let's see the npm version. So I have an npm version of 8.15. Okay, so that means we completed installation of node and npm, node packages, node package manager. Now we need to install Newman. So the command to install Newman, npm space install -g Newman. Okay, so this is going to download and then install your Newman by using npm package manager. Okay, so it will take a couple of seconds. So it's installing. Okay, so installation is finished. So we have completed installation. Now we need to go to your Postman, and what collection do you want to execute? So let's assume I want to execute a collection called collection 3, where we are sending a registration of the user this is one request, and then this is our second request, and then this is our third request. Basically getting users list and get single user, right? All these uh, request messages we already created. So as part of my previous videos, I have explained you about all these um, requests. Okay, so you can refer my previous videos. So now let's say I want to execute this collection, entire collection, from command line instead of Postman. Okay, for that you need to export this collection. If you click on this more, view more actions and export, so export, and it is going to show you what version of the collection do you want to use. Okay, so it's recommended is 2.1. So I'm going to select the same and then click on export, and let me do one thing. Let me create a folder in desktop, a new folder called Postman Runner. Okay, Postman Runner, and save that collection here. Okay, let me name this as YouTube collection .json. Okay, save it. So if you go to desktop, right, you have let me see, Postman Runner. So where did I store that? Let me go here. So documents. So let me see, where did I save that collection? Okay, let me also again do one thing. Let me export. I think somewhere I missed. Where did I? Okay, Postman Runner. Oh, it's in not. Let me do one thing. Let me store in my desktop. Let me create in my desktop. Okay. Okay, it's already there. Postman Runner, desktop, Postman Runner. Let's go to desktop, Postman Runner. Okay, this is where we stored. Okay, so for now once you save your collection, you need to run the collection. So what is the command to run the collection? So the command to run the collection is Newman space run and your collection file name. Okay, where do you need to execute this command? You need to execute this command in the folder where you have saved your collection. So I'm initiating command line from this folder. If you see, if you directly enter cmd in your address bar, it automatically initiates your command line in the same folder, right? Correct. So now here, what command do you need to use? Newman run, and what is the file name? So this is my file name. Correct. This is my file name. So let's run, enter. So as soon as you enter, it's gonna run all the scripts whatever there. Okay, so if you see here, first post register user, if you see in the collection, my first test case is, first script is register user, and the second one is under get request, get users list, which is pass. And the next one is this get single user, which is pass. The first one is failed because we got some error. So, and then if you scroll down, it gives you all your iterations. We executed only one iteration. How many requests we sent? We sent 3 requests and one is failed. Correct? Total test scripts run 5. What are the prescripts? 4. Asserts 3. So you get all the metrics whatever you want regarding your execution. Okay, So this is how you can execute your collection without using Postman. You need not to use the Postman in this case. You just need a command line to run your collection. That's it. So you don't need any Postman tool. Correct? I'm just running again and again. If you see, I'm running the same command. So you don't need any Postman. You need not to open the Postman. You just need to execute by using command line. So this is very important concept, because in future when I'm integrating Postman with Jenkins, I'm going to use the same concept. Okay. So if you have any queries, please do send your queries in the comment box so that I can reply to your queries. Please do subscribe to the channel, click on bell icon. You'll receive notifications whenever I publish more videos. And stay tuned for my next video to integrate the Postman with Jenkins. Thank you. Hi everyone, this is Ravi. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is our lesson 12 on Postman beginners tutorial concepts. So as you all know, I've published my lesson 11 where I've explained you how can we run Postman from Windows command line. So this is very important for you guys to watch my previous lesson 11 before you continue with this particular session. So in this session, I'm going to teach you how can we integrate Postman with a continuous integration tool called Jenkins. So in this lesson, I'm going to tell you how to install Jenkins, and then how can we integrate Postman with the Jenkins. So the topics that we are going to cover: how to download and install Jenkins, and set up Postman job in Jenkins, and then how can we run Postman from Jenkins. So please do subscribe to the channel, click on bell icon. You'll receive notifications whenever I publish more videos. Now let's jump onto the system and see how can we perform all these actions practically. So this is my system. Okay. So first, how can we download and install Jenkins? So this I have already explained you guys in my previous sessions. If you go to this session here, if I can show you here, so if you want to really see the video how to download Jenkins, you can go to my channel and then refer to this particular video. So where I have clearly explained step by step how can we install, how can we configure Jenkins, and then how can we log into Jenkins. Okay, so I'm going to paste the URL in the description, so you can directly refer the description and find the URL. Okay, and now what is our next step? The next step is set up Postman in Jenkins. So before that, let's log into Jenkins. So how can we log into Jenkins? First of all, I have to start my Jenkins server by using command called, so where is my Jenkins? So my Jenkins is sitting here in C drive under Ravikant, right? So under, sorry, C drive and Selenium automation. So this is what my Jenkins var file is. So first I need to change the directory to the var file, and then java hyphen jar, and then jenkins.var, jenkins.var. So this is gonna run the server, and then it's gonna up the services of Jenkins. Okay, so let's wait. It's running. We are activating Jenkins server. As soon as you run that command, so once it activates the Jenkins, all you need to do is you need to basically enter localhost hyphen localhost colon 8080. So this will open your Jenkins website. Okay, I think it's up and running. Now we should be able to log into Jenkins. Okay, so this is my Jenkins username and password. So just log in. Once you log into Jenkins, now what is our next step? Our next step is to set up Postman job in Jenkins. How can we set up Postman job in Jenkins? Okay, so let's go to new item and then name this as Postman pipeline demo. Okay, and select freestyle project. I'm creating a pipeline in Jenkins. Okay, and click OK. So as soon as you click OK, now if you refer my previous video, I have explained you couple of concepts, right? One is how to run the how to run Postman by using command line. So the same concept we are going to use here. Okay, so here all we need to do is we need not to configure anything else. You have to go to build section. If you are using Windows, you need to select execute Windows batch command. Okay, if you are using Mac, you can select execute shell. Okay, I'm going to select execute Windows batch command. If you remember, in my previous video I have showed you how to save or how to export your entire Postman collection. This is my collection. I want to run all these scripts, I want to run all these requests, right? So we have exported this collection into my local folder. So this is what the local folder where I have exported, right? So for that, first I need to shift my directory to that folder. So let me tell you. So I have explained in my previous video, we are gonna change the directory to the Postman collection, and then we have used a Newman command. Newman run, and this is what I'm running. I'm running the JSON collection. Newman run, enter. So this is what we executed in my previous session, right? So here also we are going to do same thing by using Jenkins. First, I'm changing my directory. The same command I am going to provide in my Jenkins here, cd, and then I'm changing my directory to the collection JSON file. Okay, and then execute the command Newman space run the JSON file. Newman run JSON file. Correct? So that's what I'm going to specify in Jenkins. Okay, and then apply and save. Once you save the pipeline, now you can build this pipeline. That means you can run the pipeline. So let's click on build now. As soon as you click on build now, it's going to create a new pipeline, and you can go to console output to see the results. So you can see the results are displayed here. Okay, let's change this to view as plain text. If you see here, the collection run happened. My first run is this, I got an error, and the second request is this, and third request is this. We analyzed the same results in the command prompt also yesterday, right? So yesterday means in my previous session. Okay, if you see, the same results are pasted here also. I'm getting the same results in command prompt. If you see Jenkins pipeline, so how many iterations? Only one iteration we executed. We passed 3 requests, out of which one request is failed. See, that is what it's showing, the error, correct? So that means our pipeline is successfully ran. So we ran the pipeline successfully, right? Without any issues, correct? Hope you all understand the concepts. How can we download and install Jenkins? And how can you set up the Postman job or the pipeline in Jenkins? And how to run Postman from Jenkins? If you have any queries, please provide your queries in the comment box. I'll try to respond. Please do subscribe to the channel, click on bell icon. You'll receive notifications whenever I publish more videos. Thank you.